Okay, this is really exciting. Oh, thank you, Candy, for reaching out to me because I really want to share all this information and there's so much information to share and I'm trying not to like stumble over myself. I want to deliver it in a way that makes sense to people outside of my brain because I know I can tend to jump around a lot because a lot of it is interconnected and it's a big web of like how do I lose weight? What am I doing wrong? What could I do better? It is all interconnected. It is a web, but I got to make sure that like I give each section its time to really like allow you to understand it. Okay. So, Candy Girl, episode 3 is again dedicated to you. So let's talk about it's kind of a piggyback onto the calories nutrition episode that I did. Let's start off with not every calorie is made equally. And it's like, what do you mean? Calories are a measurement of energy. Well, I'm sorry. Maybe there needs to be another unit of measurement that isn't really energy, but like how that energy is burned efficiently. Like we have different kinds of energy in real life. We have gas, diesel, hydro, whatever. Well, it's kind of like that. Yes, all these different food sources are sources of energy, but they all burn differently. And we can see that with how it's affecting our blood sugars, our glycemic levels. I got to talk about food and glycemic levels together. Okay, so I'm insulin resistant because I have PCOS. Candy Girl has PCOS, so I'm assuming she's also insulin resistant. A lot of people are having insulin issues and chronic inflammation, and I have to say it. Again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but guaranteed it's the food source. It's not made the way it was anymore. Even if you think about agriculture, I've heard it before where the breads here, the flours here in North America is not the same as the flours in Europe, where like they still mill and grind their wheat or whatever. People are able to digest the breads and the pastas in Europe better than in North America. And I think that has to do with our agriculture. If you think about evolution, humans have been around for, I don't know, millions of years. I don't know, Google this. We've been around for a long time. But in the grand scheme of things, agriculture, mass farming is still relatively new. Like all of the things that our body does, like storing fat, all the hormones that go through our body in reaction to things, like we are a product of these millions of years of evolution. And then whoop, in comes factory farming, in comes mass agriculture. And it's great. You got to feed the masses. They need to get fed. But where's the substance? Have we lost the substance? I feel like it's almost similar to we've when you clear cut forestry and then you go and replant trees. Well, you haven't replaced everything. There are things that you didn't even know existed there. There's no way you could have replaced things. So I think we can all kind of agree that the food source isn't the same as what we're supposed to be having. Like our bodies have not caught up to what it's being fed. And I think that definitely is being manifested in things like chronic inflammation, autoimmune disease, joint problems, digestion problems. That can be caused and cured by what food we're eating. So it's tricky because if you're on a budget, you have to buy the foods that are affordable, that are readily available, that will store longer. And if you haven't been at this for a long time, like I know a lot of people have had to cut their budgets, things are tighter, so they have to be really smart with where they're spending their dollars on at the grocery store. So if this is a new thing for you, it can be hard to navigate. And like, yeah, there are a ton of recipes on like TikTok that include pasta and cheese and ground meats and stuff. But if you're on a wellness journey, ooh, you're going to feel that in a not in a good way. Not in a good way. You have to be very smart with how you're eating, knowing where to splurge and where to save. And perhaps I'll do a different episode for that. But for right now, I want to just talk about, why am I fat? Why am I carrying extra weight right now? Well, it could be your food source. Even as something as simple as like, okay, I'm going to have a salad. I'm going to a restaurant, but I want to have a salad. I'm going to have a chicken, and I'm going to have chickpeas. I'm going to have all these things on it and a light dressing. Well, yeah, on surface that sounds great, but you don't know if that chicken was made with additives or with extra salt, with sugars on it. You have zero control if you're eating out. No matter how healthy the restaurant is, it doesn't matter. You had zero control into the ingredients that are going into it. So sometimes even when you're thinking you're making the right choice, it might not be the right choice. And unfortunately, you don't know if it's the right choice until after you've made that choice and you see, oh shoot, the scale hasn't gone down or it's gone up. I don't get it. So frustrating. Avoiding takeout, number one, cook at home if you can. Do the takeout every once in a while, but don't lean on it all the time because you need to have control over what you're consuming. Even if on their menu it says it's X amount of calories, it's X amount of protein, who knows what the amount of sodium is. Like you're not getting the full story, you're not getting the full ingredients. You could be having an actual reaction or an intolerance to a seasoning or an additive that they put into it that you don't even know. So control what you're consuming by making it at home. Now, in my last episode, I may have talked bad about the nutritionist who was trying to help me back in the early 2000s. I'm hoping things have changed. I know a lot of nutritionists out there are well intended. But I will say the best advice that she did give me in terms of shopping for food was to shop the perimeter of the grocery store. It's hands down, no fail. You're most likely to find your more healthier options on the outside aisles. So that's your produce, your bakery, if you want bread, if there's a fresh baked place, it's your dairy, your meats, your frozen fruits and vegetables. They're all on the outside. All on the inside is extra, to be honest, extra flavors or quick made. Convenience items. And by all means, have them. But know that when you are buying convenience, you're also buying issues later on, maybe. Talk about calories, but let's talk about what are the things that make up calories. So calories can come from fats, calories can come from carbs, and calories can come from protein. Now, each of those has a different amount of calories. So let's see if I can remember this off the top of my head. Let's see if I can remember this off the top of my head. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But like a gram of protein has the least amount of calories versus a gram of fat versus a gram of sugar. I believe fat has the most amount of calories for the same amount of like weight. And I believe that's why the whole war on fat happened in the 80s and 90s, like fat free this, fat free that. But then what we ended up doing was adding more sugar, and that didn't help us out at all. So stay away from fat free. Okay, so those are the three things that create calories. Let's talk about fat. Like I just said, don't eat fat free. Go ahead and have the fat. In fact, you need fats. Did you know that there are vitamins that are only fat soluble? Like you need to have fat in your diet to bring and transport certain vitamins to your body. So fat is not a bad thing. It's when you have excessive fat, when it's trans fat, when it's fried fat, then obviously that's not the good stuff. But like healthy, I can't say healthy oils. All oils have fat. All oils are oils. But choosing oils like olive oil or avocado oil or an oil that comes from a seed or nut, like you can get peanut oil, there's less processing to get that oil. So, all these foods are out here, fine, but I do find that the more processing that food has gone into before it reaches your plate, the worse it is. Try to find foods that have the least amount of processing. So olive oils would have less processing than canola oil, so choose that. But we do need fats. So if you're going to have something fried, so whatever, you had something fried. Okay. Next is carbs. And they get put together with sugars because carbs are sugars. There are three kinds of sugars. There's glucose, the sugars that come from bread, glucose. There's fructose that comes from like fruit and vegetables. And then there's lactose, which is dairy. All of those oses are different kinds of sugars. And all those sugars are carbs. Carbs is what gives you energy. You need carbs to run, to jump, to breathe. Your body does need carbs, but not all carbs. How do I want to say this? I'm going to sound like a bit of a hypocrite because I avoid carbs, but it's not because I'm anti-carbs, if that makes sense. Yeah, there was a time in my life where I did the Atkins, I did the keto. Ugh. Okay. Did that last? No. Why? Because we need carbs. You need energy. You become an angry person, very sluggish if you don't have something to give you energy. However, I do think that this anti-carb is an overcorrection to a problem that is very real. Those dramatic anti-carb type diets where you have zero carbs whatsoever, I think they mean well, but I do think it's an overcorrection. But it is a correction to a problem that's actually happening and has been happening. And that is our dependency on grains and carb products. So if you think about wheat products, so that's the glucose, we have such a dependence on glucose products, pastas, breads, sandwiches, pizzas, wraps, pitas, cookies, everything. It starts, every meal is based around a wheat glucose product. And yes, if you're a farmer and you have lands to till and you're hauling logs all day, absolutely, you need that type of food to keep you fueled up. For the most part, we're not that. We work maybe 8 hours a day sitting down. It's too much. It's way too much for our body to handle. And that is where you get spikes in your glycemic levels. That's where you get your inflammation. That's where you get bloating and gaining weight very quickly because your body is not made to take on all of these extra carb sources, all these extra glucose sources, and not having an output for it. So yes, it makes sense that if you want to drop weight quickly, cut your carbs. Yes, that does make sense, but you still need them. So don't cut them. Modify it. Fructose, sugars and stuff like that. They're more easy to see because oh, that's a sweet treat. Oh, that's just really sweet. You can tell by the taste of it. Oh, this has got a lot of sugars in it. I better stay away from it. But with glucose items, it's harder to tell because usually they're not sweet. They're just a base to things being put on it. So when you take away the base, it's like, well, now what am I going to have? How can I have a sandwich without the bread? How can I have a meal without the main dish? And it's that rewiring of thinking is where a lot of people, myself included, have tripped themselves up in terms of changing how they eat and their diets and how they look at food. Because everything out there, let's say you don't want to cook, you go somewhere, it's a grain product. Oh, you're getting together with friends. What are you going to make? What are you going to serve? Oh, it's a grain product or it's a sweet treat. There's so many things that are based around that kind of eating that you really do have to be thoughtful and mindful as to, okay, how am I going to feed myself? And then if you've got that figured out within your own home, great. It takes some learning. You have to unlearn and relearn, substitute to get the same sort of animal. That's not the same. Like I won't do pizzas anymore at home for myself. My daughter, she can have them because she's a kid. She needs the energy. Have at her. I don't. So for my pizzas, I'll do I'll do a chicken parmesan crust, chicken, egg, and parmesan, mix together, bake it, and then that's my base for pizza, and it's great. It's perfect, and I don't have to worry about my blood sugar spiking. But I wanted pizza, and it tastes like pizza. So I've had to be really smart. There have been a lot of experiments gone wrong. Trial and error. Sometimes you'll make something so good, but then you won't remember how you made it. And then other times you'll follow a recipe and it's like, this is crap. But it's just like when you're learning to cook for the first time as a kid. Yeah, you made some mistakes. So you're going to make some mistakes on how to like detach yourself from being so dependent on grain products because factually, our bodies don't need all of that energy. And grain products are really hard to pinpoint in terms of like, oh, that's the culprit. Whereas cookies and cakes, it's easy to figure out. Oh, that's the problem. That's the culprit. But like a healthy pasta salad with tomatoes and peppers and a vinaigrette, that's healthy, right? It is. It doesn't have that much calories, but if the carbs and the sugars are high, your insulin levels are going to be spiking, and that's going to have a reaction on your body. For myself, I've done really well with eating like a diabetic. So that means for my snacks, I stay within 10 to 15 grams of carbs because I do need energy, but I don't need that much. So 10 to 15 grams is where I land for my snacks. Sometimes I go over, but for the most part, that's my happy place. And then for meals, that's trickier. I have to be around 50 to 55 grams of carbs, no more than that. And it's like, you think about rice starts at like 47 grams for a small little bit. If you're going to get like shawarma, let's say, yeah, they made the chicken, you got lots of veggies on top of there, but they load it on a plate full of rice. That's an insane amount of carbs like that you're consuming and you're not using that up. So eat your carbs, but reduce the amount if you want to see yourself not store all of that energy because that's energy. I have to limit my carbs because I will get cankles the next day if I eat too many melons, that kind of thing. Yeah, my body is so sensitive to carbohydrates. It doesn't even matter what it is, whether it's a piece of bread or whether it's a melon. If I have that, it still makes my body still thinks I had a piece of cake. Like it doesn't matter. I will have cankles. I'll be so swollen. There's imprints being made on my legs from my socks. So I have to be very limited of what I allow myself. But that's only because I have PCOS. I'm insulin resistant. This may not be true for you. You have to find out if you're insulin resistant, if you're not, and you can eat these things without it affecting your body. How does it feel to be God's favorite? Because I feel like a lot of people have a body reaction to different forms of carbohydrates, wheat products being specifically that, or refined white sugars. Speaking about sugars, I would prefer a natural sweetener over a synthetic sweetener. Yes, the synthetic sweetener's got 0 calories. Technically, I don't think it's supposed to spike your blood sugar. That's why it's made. It's for diabetics. But in terms of how it makes me feel, I don't like it. I never feel satisfied. In fact, I feel more hungry when I have a Diet Coke than if I have an actual Coke. The craving never fully goes away and it never fully hits that spot, right? So save yourself the aspartame, the sucralose. Just don't do it. Start cooking with natural sweeteners. And I don't mean like derived from, I mean from the earth. Maple syrup and honey. Some figs, blend that up. The closer it is to the actual plants, the better it is for you. Yes, it might increase your glucose levels, but it won't spike it and it won't dramatically drop. And sometimes, especially if you're using like figs to sweeten things and desserts, it comes with fiber. So it actually keeps you fuller longer. It's weird because I grew up in a house where juice was Kool-Aid, which is basically just sugar water. So sugar was everywhere. Even now, if you go and look at the price of sugar, it's still the same price as it was 10 years ago. Everything has inflated. except for sugar, because sugar is so cheaply made. So if that's not saying something, I don't know what is. Start buying your sweeteners closer to the source of the earth, or from the plant, or from the tree, whatever it is. And I know that sounds hippy dippy, but like, come on. This planet was made for us. We were made for this planet. Stop over processing your stuff and start getting back to basics a little bit. So I talked about glucose, fructose. Okay, protein. Protein, yes. Protein is my favorite food source. I have to rely on it. Because if I drop too many calories, if I don't eat enough calories, it's my body's going to look for energy source. And if I am using up my fat sources, where's it going to take from next? My muscles. Especially if I'm not using my muscles, I run the risk of losing weight in my muscles because I'm not supporting them with the protein to keep them strong, you know? Like I said, carbs are for energy, storing, and giving out. Fat is to transport vitamins. Protein is to support your muscles. So let's not forget those. But because protein has the least amount of calories for the same amount of weight as the other two categories, you're going to need to eat more. And that's where I was constantly running into. If I can't have too many carbs because it will inflame me and I will gain weight anyways, and I feel so uncomfortable in my skin, and I don't want to overdo it with the protein, what can I do? Well, that's where you get a little snazzy with the oils and the fats. Start eating some nuts, eating some avocados. Allow yourself some olive oil, homemade dressings. Like, I used to think you couldn't have oils in your dressing, that your oils had to be vinegar, balsamic vinegar, and mustard. Ugh, the first time I lost 100 pounds, that was what I put on my salads, balsamic vinegar and mustard. No. Like, I mean, it's fine, but no. Dijon mustard, at least. Fancy. But no, now I use olive oil. I use vinaigrettes. I throw it. It's important. I need to have it because if I don't have enough calories, I'm not losing weight. I'm staying stuck. I'm stressing my body out. Okay. So now that what are calories, where they come from, um, the next thing I would say is to figure out when you're eating these calories. Because again, the food is to fuel your body. So I personally eat my carbs, my sweet treats, my danishes, whatever I was craving the night before, I don't eat it the night before. Oh, those cravings hit at nighttime for sure because I'm bored. I've done everything I needed to do. And then it's like, snacks. I want some snacks. And if I can just get myself into bed, put on a show, fall asleep, I've won. I win. That's the only way I could win that battle. I cannot stay awake if the voice in my head is like, snacks. I gotta go to bed. But, ooh, girl, the next morning, I'm having a Snickers bar for breakfast. No, I'm kidding. Not really. I'm not really having a Snickers bar. But like, A, do I still want the thing I was craving the night before? Usually, maybe not. Sometimes I am. B, have at her. Eat it up. Breakfast. Have your waffles with your extra whipped cream. Put the whipped cream on the coffee. Whatever the hell you want, have it in the morning. Because then you have the whole day to use up that energy. Or you are about to go for a walk sometime in the afternoon. That's a great time to have your little sweet treat. Have it right before you walk because you're using that energy right away. So yeah, not only are not all calories made the same, but even when are you eating these calories, that's important too. Like after a workout, you want to eat some protein. Before a workout, if it's running, that's when you want to have your carbs so you can use it up right away. Let me think. Is that all I want to say on this episode about calories and nutrition? Yeah. No, there's more. Okay, so let's say you're looking at a label and you're like, I don't know what's more important. Yeah, I get that. I think a lot of people focus too much on the calories. And yes, I did tell you to start tracking your calories so you knew where you were. But once you kind of know where you were before and where you're landing now, stop focusing so much on the calories because that's not how you want to live your life. That's not fun. So I would say always keep an eye on your carbs and your protein because they're pretty indicative of how well this is going to be for you. If it's got a lot of carbs, it's only like, let's say it's a couple treats, a biscuit or something, and it's got an insane amount of carbs and no protein, versus you made a different kind of biscuit that's got way more protein, not a lot of carbs, obviously, but it has more calories. You're going to want to go with the one that has more calories, more protein, and less carbs versus the one that has less calories, more carbs, and less protein. Does that make sense? I would say for me, someone who is insulin resistant, uh, the one with more calories but less carbs, because my body needs the calories no matter what. My body needs calories to do what it needs to do, but it doesn't need all the extra energy to be stored. So my focus is to keep the carbs low. Someone who is a runner, let's say, they don't want anything too heavy, but they need the carbs for energy. Their option might be meal A. So you got to kind of figure out, what are my issues? What are my goals? And what am I eating that's helping me get there or hindering my ability to get there to meet my goals? And I feel like those are the four things you should check. Yes, calories. Maybe fats. I don't pay attention to fats anymore. Carbs, protein. I will probably do another episode later on down the road to really break down carbs, but that's the layman's, like, if you need, like, give me something right now that I can work with, this is what it is. That's my information I'm sharing, my knowledge from experience with you. Watch your carbs, no more than 50 grams, 55 if you must, per serving for a meal, 10 to 15 for a snack. But also be careful, you got to keep your calories up. So good luck juggling that Sudoku. In my early days, protein sources were like, oh, chicken breast, chicken breast, chicken breast, chicken breast, blah. After a while, you get sick of chicken breast, okay? There are so many other sources of protein. It doesn't even have to be meat. There could be lentils. And lentils do have carbs, but those are good carbs. It's not a wheat carb. It's fibers. It's a good source of energy. It's a good source of protein. So definitely there are options for protein that is not meat. But like, if you are a meat eater like me, you don't need to stick with just chicken. And in fact, if you find that you are drastically cutting down your carbs, that leaves a big gap for calories. That's when you get to splurge a little bit. Go have some beef, girl. Go have some steak if your budget can fit for it, you know? I'm a big believer of like, okay, if I'm saving here, I'm going to splurge over there when it comes to my food. If you're saving in places and you're saying, no, I'm avoiding this over there, go balls to the wall in the playground that you're allowed to play in, you know? You deserve it. You know, if you're going to take yourself out to a restaurant, don't order a salad. Go order that $45 steak, girl. Eat it all up and eat the potato. Yeah, let's talk about potatoes, okay? I thought I was going to sign off, but now, oh my God, I'm back to talk about potatoes. The potatoes are the vegetable of my people. I'm half Irish. I love a good potato, okay? Potatoes will save your life. In The Martian, potatoes saved his life because potatoes have so many nutrients and minerals. As fiber, if you keep the skin on, it's got protein in it, and it's got carbs that gives you energy. For some reason, potatoes got stuck into the same category as breads. Let me say this again. If it's not as processed, it's better for you. Of all the carb sources that are there to put as a side dish, if you have pasta, bread, rice, or potato. I love potatoes. They are the things that save me. When I feel like I didn't have enough calories today, a potato. A potato and some meat. That's a good meal. Sweet potatoes aren't really worth it, in my opinion. I know I went through a craze for a while. Everyone's like, oh, sweet potatoes, it's healthier. No, it ain't. It's not healthier. In fact, sweet potatoes, depending on how you bake them, they actually get more candied. They get their glucose levels actually spike. Like if you bake a sweet potato, it's actually more sweeter than if you boiled it. Like go figure. The way you cook it can change the glycemic levels of a sweet potato. So you're like actually creating candy when you bake a sweet potato. Sometimes we overcomplicate things. We overcomplicate the messaging. Oh, have this, don't have that. This is better. This is better. Like, man. Get back to basics. Less steps from farm to your table, and don't buy the hype. Figure out what works for you, as I will always keep saying. I will figure out a better setup, but this is helping from me making the sound on the microphone. So I hope it sounds good. It sounds good in my ear. Candy Girl, there's so much more information for me to share, but this episode was a really long one and I need to move on to the next thing, okay? Tune in. I'm not quite sure what the next one's going to be, but it is still going to carry on in the essence of what am I doing wrong? Tune in. Bye.